Parents, are we worried about that dreaded back to school transition? We know a lot of times we've got these amazing, brilliant, creative kids, but that transition back can be really tough for a lot of them, especially when we're dealing with things like neurodivergence, sensory processing disorders, attention deficit disorders. We can have the struggle, it can completely set us off base, things like sleep issues, going back to having to sit still in class, getting back in the rhythm of routine and things. We can really see those kids struggle in big ways. So we want to give you guys access to 5 simple steps that can really help calm down that transition and, of course, calm down that nervous system so they can handle those transitions a lot better. I've watched in practice these transitions into school are actually so interesting for me. And it's not just kids, it's not just sensory processing, it's everybody. It's anybody that's involved with it. I take care of a lot of teachers. Of course, I take care of a lot of parents with school age kids and the school age kids themselves. And what I see during that transition phase is everybody's nervous system actually struggles with that transition, getting back into the rhythm. I see it a lot with teachers. Their scores on the neurological scans go down. The kids emotionally start to struggle. Pain increases in people during these times as well. A lot of times we wouldn't connect that, but it does affect our bodies when we have to go through things that our bodies are not used to. So here are so step number one: reset sleep gradually. I know in my house we're having a real struggle with this. It stays lighter longer. I even last night the kids were up until 10 o'clock at night. We were just playing, but eventually they're going to have to start going to bed in a way that they're not groggy when they get up in the morning. Our bodies are used to a rhythm. If we go to bed late, wake up at specific times, our body gets used to that. So we can just gradually decrease that by increments. Go earlier and earlier by 15-minute increments. That can help the body regulate and adapt a lot better instead of day one of school going straight to that early bedtime, early rise. Their bodies don't deal with that very well, and the nervous systems do suffer as a result. They're also learning the habit and pattern around bedtime does matter. This is common knowledge nowadays, but the screen time around beds, they're learning that the lights that we see from those screens stimulate our brains as if we are looking at the sun in a lot of ways, and so it disrupts that day and night cycle. So that if that can be limited to a degree, right around that 15-minute mark before bedtime, that can really calm down their nervous systems to naturally be able to go to sleep. Number two, create an organized home environment. This is important for everybody. This goes without saying. We all know this. But this is probably even more important for our sensory processing and attention deficit kids. They have to process everything. And though that's one of the struggles they have, is usually in those cases, their fight or flight nervous system is overstimulated or in overdrive. That means that they're initially perceiving almost everything in their lives as a threat. So even objects, if there's so much clutter around, it's hard to focus because they have to pay attention to all things at all times, and it can be overwhelming. Number three is the study space. It needs to also be organized and distraction free, maybe even more so. This is a time where they do have to sit still and focus on one thing at a time, which can be a challenge, especially if you're coming from that transition of parties in summer. To the other thing I would add is goals. Our attention spans, even for adults, is shorter and shorter as time goes on. Of course, for kids, they are struggling with this as well. And then take it even further with sensory processing and ADHD. And so to have a goal of we need to focus for 10 minutes, work really hard on this specific problem or project, and then we can have a little bit of a break. That lets them have that drive to be able to focus and be able to accomplish goals. They realize they can do it, and then they can um, go for longer. Number four, we've got to prioritize exercise and physical activity. This is a big deal. This is becoming a huge health crisis in our whole community, not just for kids, but for adults. There's actually a book by Dr. John J. Ratley. It's called Spark. It talks about how, as they took PE and physical activity out of the school systems, that the grades plummeted. There's a reason for that. Our brain and our bodies, in a lot of ways, are mirror images of each other. If you've got a healthy body, it makes the proper chemicals and hormones, it works the right way, and so it feeds into your brain and makes your brain healthy as well. You take that away, and we're going to struggle. That's a lot of the reason why we're even seeing a lot of these neurodivergence and sensory processing disorders skyrocket in the last few years because we've taken the priority off the physical activity. But it needs to come back. That will absolutely change the way your kids work, is to get some physical activity. That can be the breaks they take. We just talked about no distractions during study time. That can be the break, is go do some physical activities. It resets their brain, it calms them down, it gives them happy hormones, and lets them focus. And of course, number five, and you knew this was coming, consider neurologically focused chiropractic care. Chiropractic, especially neurologically focused chiropractic, is designed to help the nervous system regulate itself. If we got a healthy, highly regulated nervous system, it can handle these transitions a lot better in all ways. When it comes to handling a virus that comes along, handling a struggling sleep transition, the fight or flight nervous system, we're able to regulate and modulate and heal from those things better if the nervous system has the capacity to do so on its own. And chiropractic helps with that, especially when it comes to sensory processing and ADHD. In those cases, they're geared a lot more towards that fight or flight nervous system. But think about what that does. Imagine what your body does if you were in a stressful or emergency situation. Muscles tense up. We can't be focused on one thing at one time. We got to be focused on our entire surroundings to survive. If we're geared that way, you could imagine how hard it is to pay attention to things or deal with transitions. If every transition or every change is seen as a threat, that's a problem. That's why we're having these big emotional outbursts. That's why we get other illnesses, sicknesses, and diseases, because the body can't handle that transition. Well, if we can regulate that nervous system, it does better taking care of those things on its own. The biggest part is not just going for it. We've got to analyze. We've got to make sure that the nervous system is the root cause issue if we're dealing with these things. For us in our office at Statera Chiropractic, we use the state of the art scan technology to be able to assess the nervous system. We actually use 3 different scans, and they are very good at measuring how adaptable the nervous system truly is, how severe, if any, there is as far as blockage, interference to that nervous system, and it will allow us to give a custom tailored care plan as far as how to help that as well. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out, especially as we are getting very close to that school season, so we can help you out, help the kids during school as well, improve test scores, improve their interactions with their peers and their teachers, and get them to live a free and happy life.